Hello everyone. In this module, I'll be providing a very short introduction to the first part of the essay, The Language of Film by Amy Villarejo. Professor Amy Villarejo teaches in Cornell University in the United States of America. She is a professor of performing and media arts. She has got a number of publications on cinema, on documentary film, on Indian cinema, on television, on queer media, etc. Her major books are Lesbian Rule, Cultural Criticism and the Value of Desire, Film Studies, A Global Introduction, and Film Studies, The Basics. These books are widely prescribed for various academic programs related to cinema and culture. Amy Villarejo's essay prescribed in this course is titled The Language of Film. This essay is actually the second chapter of her book, Film Studies, The Basics. This module introduces the prescribed essay with a few extracts taken for elaboration. In the introduction to the book, she tries to provide an answer to the question, why study film? She says that, quote, the study of cinema, in other words, is emphatically not an attempt to arrest its dynamism, to still it in order to subject it to a scrutiny. It's rather the pursuit of cinema as an historical hydra with tentacles reaching into all aspects of our individual and collective lives, unquote. If we go through the essay, The Language of Film, it, quote, offers a quick primer in the language of film analysis or the formal study of film, covering cinematography, mise-en-scène, editing, sound and narrative, demonstrating that some specialized terms are essential for understanding how films work and how films solicit our attention and responses, unquote. As we already have dedicated individual modules on cinematography, mise-en-scène, editing, soundscape and film narrative in this course, we will focus largely on other matters discussed by Amy Villarejo, especially her juxtaposition of language and cinema. Amy Villarejo opens the essay by drawing a formal comparison between film and language. She begins the essay with a simultaneous statement and an interrogation. Quote, film is structured like a language, or is it? Unquote. We know that language is a structure of structures. Language is structured at various levels like phonemes, morphemes, words, clauses, sentence, syntax and semantics. In linguistic communication, all these elements play a crucial role in coding and encoding the message. Similarly, cinema too is composed of various elements, especially shots and sequences. Therefore, cinematic meaning making depends on each individual elements. Villarejo explains further, quote, composed of fundamental units called shots, films rely upon edits to join shots together into larger strings called sequences, or a series of shots united in time and space, just as words become sentences. Many films depend for their intelligibility upon rules or cinematic conventions, a form of film grammar that has evolved over time, unquote. It has to be noted that in this book, Villarejo provides an explanation to all the key concepts and technical terms related to cinema. With particular reference to Leni Riefenstahl's The Triumph of the Will, Villarejo explains a few cinematic conventions like flashbacks or temporal ellipses.
vor dem ganzen deutschen Volke angetreten. Ihr repräsentiert eine große Idee. Und wir wissen, dass für Millionen unserer Volksgenossen die Arbeit nicht mehr ein trennender Begriff sein wird, sondern ein alle gemeinsam verbindender. Und dass insbesondere keiner mehr dann in Deutschland.
Flashbacks are often attained with a dissolve. In this context, it's important to note that just like natural language or verbal communication, visual language also develops by incorporating new ways of expressing meaning, especially when new technologies arrive and the existing technologies become redundant. Villarejo says that, quote, like language, new elements born of both technological innovation and imaginative invention enter the cinematic lexicon, while others disappear or become anachronistic. Cinema is not a communication system of closed codes. It's a communicative complex which ever expands by the contributions of new communicative strategies by filmmakers and technicians associated with cinema. The wedding of the visual element with the oral element offers new possibilities of communicating meanings in cinema. While accepting new strategies of codification, cinema sheds old, redundant strategies also. For example, Villarejo explains how the convention of iris has now become obsolete in the context of new cinema. The use of the iris, or another edit, a round mask that closes to black or that opens to begin a sequence or that encircles an important detail, has even come in recent years to signify old-fashioned, associated as it is with the silent narrative cinema, unquote. By juxtaposing cinema with the various subgenres in literature, Villarejo says that, quote, like language, film opens to different uses of forms. Some forms are like stories, other more like novels or serials. Some films seem poetic, other straying perhaps towards profundity, seem simply nonsensical. Some documentary films want their language to seem transparent, as much as of the language of journalism aspires to be, while other films want us to do nothing more than to notice their language, as with filmic explorations of the avant-garde and other experimental makers, unquote. Villarejo also accepts that there are limitations in comparing literature and cinema. Treatment of time in cinema is very important. Screen duration of cinema will be different from the natural duration of time. Cinema manipulates the time. Cinema can expand, duplicate, intermix, compress, repeat, and erase time. Time in cinema works within the internal logic of cinematic conventions. Thousands of years of history can be compressed in a 2-hour cinematic time. Similarly, events occurred in a minute can be expanded to many hours in cinematic text. Amy Villarejo provides a few examples to show how cinema really affects us. She says that cinema enlists our sensations, perceptions, and responses. Cinema appeals to our memories by creating an individual archive of memories and experiences within us. Cinema becomes an integral part of our personal and individual histories. Cinema becomes a part of our collective lives. Film experience appeals to our linguistic experience. Our personal experiences are often identified with those experiences shown in cinema. Cinema appeals to our common sense. cinema rearranges our ideas, our relationship with the present and the past. Amy Villarejo cites Ellen Resnick's films Night and Fog and Hiroshima to show how our understanding of death is rearranged by cinema.
Premier regard sur le camp. C'est une autre planète. Sous son prétexte hygiénique, la nudité.
She says that The Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Danube invents Hollywood history from the perspective of a black lesbian who is searching both for love and for non-existent images of herself in the world of cinema. Cinema rearranges our linguistic and cultural behavior too, to the extent that at times, quote, we speak in the language of cinema, according to Villarejo. For example, she says that we call the photographers paparazzi after the character of Paparazzo in Federico Fellini's Da Dockel Vita, 1960. Villarejo's prefatory note to the essay ends with a note of precaution by discussing the possibilities and limitations of understanding cinema and language in their formal properties alone. Here is a larger extract from the essay. Quote, finally, in understanding the comparison with language to obtain between scholarly approaches to film form and linguistic treatments of grammar, so that we are comparing the study of elements of film form and their rules of combination, shots, sequences, continuity, editing or challenges thereto, with the study of elements of a given language and its rules, words, sentences, correct versus incorrect usage, we risk diminishing both film study and our conception of language and its study. We reduce both. In other words, to normative analysis. For to study a system and its rules is to reduce a phenomenon in order to make it manageable. Grammar elides other fascinating realms of linguistics, history, texts, philology, comparative linguistics, the philosophy of language, the study of its use, and the like. Film analysis, the name for the study of film as a language, through the taxonomy of its form and as an examination of its rules, similarly brackets film history, theory, the philosophy of the image, fandom, technological shifts, industrial organization, and so on. Film analysis, furthermore, lends itself most powerfully to the study of narrative film, a dominant form to be sure, but as we have seen, by no means the only one. Please read the essay in full and thoroughly. Thank you for watching.